eternal city. I have seen the end of days, and years from now men will say, here began the fall of Rome. The Senate was taken from the many and given to the few. Those who wore the golden wreath grew sick with every kind of wickedness. They were filled with greed, deceit, and malice. They condemned and enslaved. They betrayed their friends and murdered those they loved. They did all this and called it just. And I saw in his hand a book sealed with 7 seals, the first of which was broken. And behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and he went forth to conquer. The air was filled with smoke and blood.
Hello, Horace here with the first episode in a new Let's Play, which I mentioned in the previous and last episode of the Octavian Let's Plays. We did finally finish that. Holy cow, that was a long last episode. Anyway, hopefully that captured, we'll find out. But I wanted that to be the opening to this new play because, of course, we're in the time of the fall of the Roman world, especially the West, and the beginning of the Dark Ages. So, as you can tell, I'm using the Radious mod. This is Total War Attila, which was the newest title. Now they've got another one that's coming out very soon, called Warhammer, which is a fantasy game, but looks like a lot of fun, and there's a few of you probably have played it. Well, played Warhammer in the past. Of course, been a Total War series. Anyway, we're going to go to Grand Campaign. As mentioned in the last part, we could choose from all these factions, but we've decided, in honor of my wife and my daughter, who are heavily Irish, and myself is Welsh, but they're very Irish, we're going to do the Ebdani, and we're going to try to see if we can create an Irish empire. They are the end of the Celtic world, so to speak, as far as there's nothing else, obviously, to the west of them other than the Americas, which we can't get to. Would be kind of cool to see, but yeah, no, we can't see. But anyway, we do get a lot of stuff. Hopefully the background noise isn't too distracting. You can hear me. I am immune to swamp attrition, which is good. We have -15 movement speed and rating stance. That's not so good. It's counterbalanced by 200% additional enemy turn. And of course, all units have heroic point. That's for all the Celts. Rack and Ruin is specifically the Ebdani, or Irish, and they are plus 75% to sacking and looting. 100 income for every 10% damage caused by settlement to settlements during a battle, which means it gives us an incentive to torch everything, which is nice. Captive ransom income plus 50% all forces. So we take captives, we're gonna make more money. So now that I know that, I know what we're gonna pretty much be doing every time. That also means they don't get added to the army, which does mean my guys are going to become serious veterans as long as they survive. This being the Radious mod, it's got things I don't know about necessarily in it, but we will find out. We're probably going to take it to a military or cultural victory is my theory. That's 50 settlements, survived to 450. Yes, Attila is survived because the AI can be no joke at times. They will literally chase you around the map. Supposedly that's been fixed, but in my experiment playing the Caledonian for Radious, they're still doing it. Even though this should have had a upgrade or a update as well after the patch. We pretty much have to control all the British Isles, a bit of Gaul, and Italy itself, where Rome is anyway. That makes sense. We're gonna recreate a Western Empire in the Irish. Looter sack 20 different settlements, easy enough. Maintain 120 units in total, easy. Construct 4. Of the following buildings: large city warlords, King Smith's Guild, military fort, research 16 military tech. All easy to do, and those are pretty much similar, other than the fact that it kind of streamlines what you need to hold. So Britain, and that's pretty much it. That's all it says for the cultural victory. So we may attain that before we ever get to military victory, but if we do, that's where it'll end, with that. But anyway, with that said, I will get into the history of the beginning episode. So begin the Let's Play, so we'll watch the second round again.
The air was filled with smoke and blood. Rome was weak. The tribes grew in strength and number. Their roots went deep, and they felt the earth's blood pounding through the land. But their borders were threatened, for a great storm raged in the east. One by one, the tribes scattered as seeds in the wind. And behold, a red horse, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth. The blood of their kin would be avenged. great hunters. They tempered their blades in Roman blood, and saw their once mighty walls reduced to dust. They made ready for war. Despite centuries of uneasy existence on the threshold of Roman Britain, the development of the Gaelic Celtic culture has allowed the Ebdanians to flourish. Over the years, you have seen Roman power faltering, and finally the time has come to unite the independent tribes of Britannia to reclaim the land from the Roman invaders. Your strong bond with your Pictish neighbors assures their support, but the Caledonians are a dissenting voice that must be silenced if this endeavor is to succeed. With your help, a new free empire will rise from the ashes of Roman Britain, and the Ebdani alone have the means to guide it.
Okay, Chapter 1, Preparation. Made ready for war. Survive until 400. Well, I hope so. Get 2,000 talents for my treasury. This is our only settlement in Ireland. It is Ebdani. It is a future site of Dublin, really, because it's on the river as well. It was a settlement that had within it the semi-holy site and legendary site of Tara, which was the site where the kings of Ireland, the High Kings, were crowned in ancient times. Being that this is the tail end of ancient times, it's important that we kind of go through what's been going on. So let me pull up the main map, which you're not really going to see too much on, but I need it for kind of an idea of what's been going on, and I want to explain. Alright, so as you saw at the top of the screen, let me go back to it, forgot about that, it is 395 AD. In the last part of the Octavian, the last two parts of the Octavian campaign, I talked about what happened in the transitions between the time of Total War Rome 2 and Total War Attila. During both of those, or in between both of those, I should say, of course, you had the Empire period, the first century, the Pax Romana, mostly highlighted by the Julio-Claudian dynasty, the guys that had in their family Julius Caesar, Augustus Caesar, Claudius, and yes, Caligula and Nero. Nero being the last member of that dynasty, which ended up causing a civil war because they didn't know who was going to become the next princeps civitatis, or first citizen, what we would today refer to as emperor. I also explained that emperor was imperator in the Roman Republic, and eventually got hijacked specifically by the imperial family, and that's how it's gotten associated with them. But it originally just meant something similar to shogun, in the sense that it was commander-in-chief and vanquisher of the barbarians, essentially. So, with that said, from after the Civil War that caused, I believe it was the year of 6 emperors, after Nero's death, the end result was Vespasian, who was a general down here in Palestinian, which at the time was known as Judea. It got renamed because of the events he was involved in over there, which was the Jewish rebellion, 79 AD. He returned back to Italy to be crowned by his supporters there as emperor, while his son Titus continued the siege of Jerusalem, famous from Titus and Vespasian's arch, which is in Rome itself, and has on it a depiction of the triumph after the fall of Jerusalem, when the spoils of war were brought back to Rome, and among those was the menorah, which is depicted in that scene. In either case, down through the line, the Flavian dynasty, famous from Vespasian and Titus, is where we get the Colosseum, also known as the Flavian Amphitheater. It became the premier site of gladiatorial combat in the empire, and of course a very vivid symbol of imperial might. and continues to be even to this day. But at this point, it is just an amphitheater, a really, really big one. Well, Vespasian and Titus and his progeny continue to rule for a couple generations before another civil war occurs. This time it is the 2nd century crisis, which splits the empire between an empire of Gaul, the empire of Palmyra, and then everything else, which ends up with the empire coming back together under Aurelian, I believe. And Aurelian unites the empire as one once again, and it continues to exist after that into the 3rd century religious turmoils. And that's mostly characterized by mystery religions and the rise of Christianity. There are a few minor persecutions of Christians and other groups that were undesirables within the empire, which they felt were subverting the morals of the empire. This would change by the end of the 3rd century into the early 4th century with Constantine the Great, who his dad had been responsible for the defense of Britannia and the governorship of Britannia and Gaul. He combines that with Iberia and marches into Italy to dethrone the pagan Maxentius after he goes through a conversion on the Milvian Bridge, or right before the Milvian Bridge, which is a battle that happened in Italy, where Maxentius himself dies. He unites the West, and then goes into a series of diplomatic and administrative processes, legalizing Christianity, giving it the protection of the empire, vocally supporting it, and working a treaty with one of his two similars in the east, Licinius, who he pits against Maximinus Daia, who controls Asia Minor and parts of Syria, and eventually takes that over. As you notice, as I mentioned in the last episode of Octavian, the province of Judea is now Palestina. That is because of that sack of Jerusalem, and later under Hadrian, who is famous for Hadrian's Wall up here, for its sack and eventually its complete destruction. The temple, yes, was eliminated in Jerusalem in 79 AD after the fall by Titus, but it wasn't until the reign of Hadrian that the city itself was leveled and sowed with salt. The city was completely destroyed. Jews were required to leave Judea, and the province itself was renamed Palestinia in honor of the Jewish biblical enemies, the Philistines, whom they officially decreed was the rightful heirs to this province. This was the time of the Great Diaspora, where Jews would eventually settle in all the major cities of the Mediterranean, especially the Western Mediterranean, along Spain and the Riviera, and even North Africa, and of course Italy. A few would have enclaves in the east, but mostly they would go to the west. Even some as far north as Britannia itself. Pretty much anywhere in the empire, but mostly west. As far away from this area as they could possibly get. Hadrian didn't just leave it at that. He did form a colony there called Aelia Capitolina, which is indeed on this map. It is the colony outside of the ruins of Jerusalem, which loom over the city in real life at this time, like a great corpse or a tombstone. The city itself has been left to the dogs, and Aelia Capitolina is the colony. It never did really flourish, and eventually it was Jerusalem was rebuilt during the time of Constantine. It was given an imperial sanction to be reinstituted. Aelia Capitolina was absorbed as a suburb of the city, and continues to this day as that. Anyway, so after the rise of Christianity, and its legalized system, the Constantinian family continued to rule as in the empire, with the slight hiccup of Julian the Apostate, so called because he was a pagan, and unashamedly so, thought that the best course of action was to reinstate the pagan world in the Roman Empire. He had as his base over here in Greece because he himself was, I believe, from Athens, or at least got educated there. In either case, Julian had as his major problem the Sassanid Empire over here to the east, the old Parthian Empire from the time of Augustus and Roman Republic was long gone. It had a palace coup where the Parthian families had been completely eliminated by a Persian dynasty called the Sassanids, who took it over and had a belief in rebuilding the famous Achaemenid Persian Empire, which was that of Cyrus and Darius, which would go all the way over here, eventually take over all of Thrace, down along the coast, and even incorporate Egypt and potentially Ethiopia. And in fact, the AI in this game is notorious for attempting to do all of that. So it is very accurate to the way it really would have been. They had huge manpower, they had an amazing amount of income, and they controlled the Fertile Crescent, the Indus River Valley, and eventually had great trade relationships with Ethiopia, Arabia, and even Scythia for that matter, and would incorporate bits of them into their imperial holdings, not to mention as allies against Eastern Roman power. Rome itself would, of course, splinter after Julian went over here to try to conquer, or at least heavily destabilize the Sassanid Empire. Went down here to Ctesiphon, which is their capital, just outside Baghdad, and attempted to take on the Sassanid Persians under the banners of the old Roman pantheon. He was, of course, killed, and according to most of the Christian historians, he is said to have said as his last words, "Jesus, you have bested me finally," or something to that extent. He was thrust through the side with a spear, didn't die immediately. He lingered off the battlefield, but he did eventually expire, and a new emperor would have to be chosen. It was, believe, not necessarily a member of the Constantine family, I'm trying to remember. It would be a general, I believe, under Julian, who was a Christian, who then took over. The empire was eventually divided again under Valens and Valentinian, who I believe were related somehow to Constantine. I'm not sure, but maybe not. Maybe it was Valentinian was the general, and he put Valens in charge of the east eventually. I don't know. This period of time is on the cusp of what I'm familiar with the exception of being able to look it up in a book and read it. At this point, though, I'm kind of winging it, so bear with me. Hopefully I'm rather accurate. I'm trying to be. So Valentinian ended up with the West, and it did prosper under him, though he did move the capital first from Rome to Mediolanum, which is Milan, and eventually up here to Metz, which is Metis, right on the border here. And at the end of his reign, it would be at Augusta Trevorum. Why? Because there was a new problem. A lot of these German factions that were tribals over on the west or east coast of the Rhine, and even farther into the unpenetrable lands of the east, were cut. Well, they were trying to build up confederations, much like what we saw at the end of the Octavian campaign. They were building a kind of answer to the Roman problem of how do we get over the Rhine, how do we have freedom to live in the lands we want to live while this giant authoritarian state is buffering us in, hemming us in. We're increasing in population. We can trade with them, but it's very unfair. They'll make inroads into our lands and sack us and attack us and raid us, and we'll do the same, but no one can make any headway here. Romans don't want to go any farther because they like these natural borders, especially since the reign of Hadrian. And Dacia, for a while, became a Roman province under Trajan, but it was eventually reabsorbed into the Germanic world. The Sarmatians continue to just kind of hang out over here as steppe nomads. They don't really have any cities per se, though the Slavic people groups that come from this area, which eventually will settle down here in the Balkans and in Central Europe, places like Poland and the like. The ancestors of the Poles and the Bosnians, Croatians, and Slovakians, and hence the name Slav, and even the Czechs. They all come from this territory, at least at this time. They are migrant, though they are famously wild. Even to the Germans, they don't really do much with these guys. They leave them alone, and there's a reason for that. These guys didn't originally come from here. Germans populated this area. Then the Slavs came, so if the Germans got forced out, you know, something bad happened. Along that, we also have a group that had come from up here, Germans from Skanza. They were known as the Gauti, not to be confused with the Geats. They appear to have been a break-off part, and either their name changed or they otherwise have a different pronunciation, but they're most likely the same tribe. The Gauti became the Goths, and the Goths broke up into different tribal groups, settled down here along the Black Sea coast. The Gruthungi and groups like them, they would settle here until a group is about to kick them out, which is where this game pretty much starts out, because over here to the east, some very ferocious tribal groups came in, displaced and absorbed the Scythians, and have since become known as the Huns. There's a lot of theories as to where the Huns come from. They might have come from a group called the Xiongnu, which came from the Han dynasty as a barbarian group north of the wall in modern Mongolia, which was in itself a confederation. Most likely, the Huns could have become, or originally come from that group, but most likely weren't the whole thing, as that was a confederation. Most likely, if they do have a connection there, they were one of the many tribes that left when sometime towards the end of the Han dynasty, the Xiongnu just disappear from records. They're no longer a threat, or they just move on, or as it is, disintegrate. And that seems to be what happened. Anyway, the Huns end up over here. They displace the Gruthungi and other groups of Goths, who then knock on Rome's borders up here. And if you played the prologue of this, you know that it kind of documents what happened there. Valens lets them in. They settle for a time up here, but they're treated very unfairly. Story of the Empire at this point. And few of them convert, but not to Latin or Orthodox Christian, as those terms at this point don't really mean much. It was just Imperial Christianity or Barbarian Christianity, also known as Arian, after Arius, who was the Bishop of Alexandria at one point in the 2nd century, I believe. Most of the barbarian factions, Germanic factions, ascribe to his version of Christianity, which pretty much creates a pantheon, 3 gods, the most powerful of which is the Father, the Spirit, which is in everyone, and then the Son, which is subservient to the Father's will and doesn't know the Father quite as well as he would if he was him, which is different from the Roman version of Christianity at this point, which Constantine, after the Nicene Creed, had created Christianity, the Nicene Creed of Christianity, also, which creates the Roman version, which says that there is one God, 3 aspects or persona of that God, much like an actor putting on different masks. So you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, which are all one being, but different personifications of that being, thus relating to the person. A very abstract ideal, which a lot of the barbarian groups up here, the Germanics, the like, didn't really get, or didn't really care to get. And the end result was they felt it was simpler and made more logical sense to them to see a pantheon of 3 gods. Of course, the Roman world considers that a heresy, so you got that religious play going Some of the Goths do convert to Arian Christianity, some don't. Some stay pagan. Valens increases sanctions against these guys settling in the lands north in Thrace and Dardania. The Goths rebel. There's a small war that happens at a battle called Adrianople right here. Adrian takes an army out, really? At Adrianople, Valens takes a army out. Valentinian tells him to wait. He's bringing forces in from across this Balkan's neck to meet up with him, and then together they're going to pounce on the Goths and annihilate them. Valens thinks this is a way of stealing his glory, so he goes into battle first and ends up losing his life and the armies of the east. Valentinian is in a bit of a panic because not only is the emperor gone, but so is the armies outside of those which are needed to hold the border against Sassanids, who is, of course, the main threat at this point. Valentinian then nominates a successor, Theodosius, who ends up taking over the east. Goes over here, consolidates power. All this time, the Goths are ransacking through Greece and the Balkan provinces. Eventually gets things back together, grabs a couple of docile armies up in Armenia, combines them with some forces he's been recruiting, and then comes down here and utterly bests the Goths. Convinces them to agree to a ceasefire, and they settle once again somewhere up here in Dardania and Thrace. While he then has control over here, Valentinian dies. There's a bit of a civil war because the successor to Valentinian is a pagan. Theodosius is a unashamed Christian. This is Theodosius I, by the way. And he demands or declares that because the Western Emperor is pagan, his authority is null and void, and he sends an army back over here to conquer the whole thing. So he does. Theodosius I will be the last emperor historically to rule the entire Roman world. After his death, his sons Arcadius and Honorius are the rulers. Arcadius in the east, Honorius in the west. The capital is once again Mediolanum, and that takes us to the time we are at right now. That is the state of the empire. Honorius is a bit of a punk. He's very young. He's not yet really of majority. Theodosius, before his death, had a barbarian general. Well, a half-barbarian general, Stilicho, as his protector and handler, so to speak. Stilicho has no intention of giving up his position as Magister Militum, or Commander-in-Chief of the military forces of the West. Magister Militum Occidentis is actually his total name, but because of increasing threats, thanks to the Huns now moving somewhere around in this area, a lot of the Germanic groups and Slavic groups alike are displacing each other, and there's becoming increasing problems over here on the border. There is the Year of Conspiracy, which happens around this time, where the Caledoni attack from the north, the Suebi and the Vandals break through the Rhine over here in the west. Saxons raid along the coast of Britain and the Gallic shores on the Channel. And this all happens at the same time as a Sassanid invasion over here in the east. So, with that, the state of events that are going on say that they have to fight this all off. This is pretty much kicking off right as the game starts. Honorius is very young. Stilicho is in charge. By the way, Stilicho is himself a half-Vandal, which makes him somewhat biased, or at least to the Roman aristocracy, the Old Guard, which there is still a Senate here in Rome. The city is still very important, but officially, although Mediolanum is the capital, the reality is it really should be Ravenna. So unless they've fixed that in this game, Honorius will probably still have his capital over here in Milan or Mediolanum. Over in the east, Arcadius is at Constantinople, the city started by Constantine the Great. He's more concerned with things going on over here in the east. Sassanids are getting strong once again under Khosrau, I believe the first or second. He's going to be a very, very big thorn in the side, and if Arcadius can't hold him back, he's going to gobble back up these regions and probably completely annihilate the Eastern Empire. I've seen it happen many times in this campaign. It seems like the Romans are having a heavier or harder time than they really ever had in order to hold their lands. Meanwhile, the Huns are creating and consolidating their power. They cannot settle, but they can make plenty of client states, which they will probably attempt to do. In Africa, the Berbers are on the rise. Along with that, some of these groups down here, the Garamanti and the like, are thinking of coming across Tripolitania and Africa and raid lands and eventually take over that area, as they feel they are the heirs to the Libyans, who were themselves partners in the Carthaginian Empire. So they kind of want that to happen. So the Suebi and the Vandals are inside of the Western Empire. The Goths are once again at war in the east because those heavy-handed tactics under Valens are once again coming across under Arcadius. And this time, at their head, of the Visigoths at least, is Alaric. They won't be known as the Visigoths in this time period, but for sake of ease, they've been called that in the game mechanic. The Ostrogoths, also a name that didn't exist at this point, but will eventually, because at this point they're both united under Alaric. But the game doesn't really play that out. But the Ostrogoths are also in Roman lands in the east, and they're trying to seek out a new place to live. So that's what's happening in the Roman lands. Up here in Britain, now that we've got all that figured out, you have the Picts up here in the north. They are what is left of the Brittonic peoples that fled the Roman invasion back during the late 1st and early 2nd centuries. The consolidation of Roman power up here has meant that not everybody has agreed to continue to be part of Britain or Britannia under Roman control. Many of the old aristocratic families of the Brittonic tribes did marry in, but a few of them were unapologetically opposed. They went north of what later became the Wall and settled way up at the top of British Britannia Major, well, the main British Isle of Great Britain. And it's represented here by the city of Wessex, which is the center of the Picts. The Picts was a term much like Britanculi, which was created by the Romans to be used as a derogatory about the Britons. They never called themselves that, but it wasn't until a later time that the territory they controlled was known as Pictland during the early Dark Ages. Caledoni, which had been around for a while, were a tribe of Britons that were north of the Wall as well. They were fiercely independent. They also made lots of raids into Roman lands, and they're the primary reason Hadrian built the wall there. The Caledoni did have a major defeat on their property somewhere around here, or here, or here, or here, or here, was a battle called Mons Graupus, which, as I've just mentioned, the location of which is undetermined, but according to the Roman tradition, the Caledoni were utterly decimated, but the Romans retreated back south of an earlier wall right here to abandon this territory back to the Caledoni, who then swarmed back into their old lands and controlled the territory. So that's what's happened there. The Picts here and the Ebdani, which is at the island known to the Romans as Hibernia. And Hibernia is the hidden land, the land lost in mist. It's a bit of a misnomer to believe that there's only one tribe controlling the entire island. As we know, that's not the case. Rome itself is on its last leg. It's going to be suffering Saxon invasions over here on the coast, Caledonian invasions from the north, Sassanid invasions in the east, Vandal and Suebi invasions across the Rhine, and of course the Ebdani creating an empire, because that's what we're going to do.
Ready for orders!
So, without further ado, hopefully that explains a little bit of what's going on. I see that we did have a raid that we could have done.
Thirsty for battle.
Truth is, I want to send all these guys over here on this.
Starting out
Forgot I have to do it this way.
for the tribe.
Okay, and now
Set up a blockade.
we can come across Honorius,
Gathering supplies.
main general, known as Stilicho, as I mentioned, has actually sent most of the armies of Britannia back across the Channel to Gaul in preparation to defend against Attila, well, not necessarily Attila, but against the Vandal invasion, so we can expect that. I hate the fact that I have so much food, but I can't do this, so I gotta eradicate that. I need a well here, first and foremost, but I can build that, so that's what we're gonna do. It's important, really, to get your military going, because as I mentioned, this is no joke.
Orders.
So here we are on Roman lands. I don't need an onager yet. I got plenty of forces. I think I'll just probably take the city as this.
Laying siege to their
I'm
hovels.
gonna sack it first. We will fight this out so you can see what the maps look like in Attila. The Roman army itself has taken a lot of different, or looks a lot different now. You'll notice that a lot of the early settlements from the time of Total War Rome 2 have been built upon, and they're now large mounds with cities on top. It's because the older cities have either been simply built on top of to where they've now a mound, or they've been probably just demolished by previous invasions, and new cities have been plopped on top of the mess. I know there's not a lot of campaign move this episode, but that's really not the point I was trying to get across. I wanted to cover all that because I felt like it was necessary. Yeah, we'll go like this. Even small settlements now have towers, so just so we're aware, that's the situation here. We're definitely going to have to be a little more cautious about our attacks in this game than we were in our other one. But this looks like a good spot to pop in at. Partially because I just want to go up there. I should be able to break away and attack that. Actually, you know what? That's exactly what I'm going to do. Alright. Get our Celtic levy and our Celtic band set up.
Group and ready.
Get our... These aren't Kerns, right? No, just Celtic brigands. Eventually, I think they'll be Kerns. Maybe. Kerns are the medieval version of these guys. They're javelin skirmisher, and in fact, well, they're very effective in light combat. So, apologize for the choppiness. I may have to turn down the settings in the next one, but this is the view of these guys. Hate that. Apparently, I am gonna have to. So we will start.
Missiles ready. The enemy should know when the odds are hopeless.
Look at that AI just going straight for the attack. They're already wrecking my archers. Fair enough. Just keep doing what you're
Warriors,
doing.
withdraw! Our men have given up and are running for their lives.
I bet they have.
Battle ready and eager. Loose. Gotcha.
Yeah, that'll work.
Forward!
Why is my Celtic band continuing to... Oh, it's because I picked the wrong guys. It's cute. Alright. There we go. Burn down these guys.
They are trying to take out our general! Defend
Sunny
him!
border guards. This various fellas is about to get raided. Apologize, looks like I got a really toned it down. I'm thinking I might be able to get away with just lowering vegetation for my videos. Okay, well. Perfect. I didn't even plan that, but man, that works.
The enemy draws near!
Archers!
Uh-huh, I see you.
Attack!
And dynamic fire, by the way.
Tower has been
before that.
destroyed!
Thanks.
This
So
bodes
far.
well! We're being ambushed!
Melee fighters ready! Bloody move!
No, we're gonna destroy it. As we should. And I see you.
Ready for battle! Ready for battle! Move it! We'll kill them all!
We'll get our prince involved in this. I don't think it's actually my prince, I think it's just a lieutenant.
Radious eager for blood! Charge! Run, Crusher! The gods guide our shots!
The enemy has found our
Cross
concealed
there.
units!
Alright. With that, put these guys up.
Battle ready and eager! Battle ready and eager! Get running! Missiles ready! Kill them all! Bloody move! We'll hunger for blood and battle!
Attack those guys. Move them around.
Their tower has
That's not
fallen!
what I said.
Good news!
Pathfinding.
Gods protect
Come on.
us! Ready for battle! Ready for battle! Rah! Ah!
That'll do.
I can't keep up!
Yeah, they're done. That's pretty much the end of those guys. There we go. Now we're making headway like that.
The enemy settlement burns!
Really? Telling me these guys can't do that? That kind of surprises me, honestly. Okay, so that'll happen. Let's get these guys in, back of them. By the way, these guys are throwing torches as they're going, so the city's burning up because of us. I think it was the grass. I think that was our biggest issue because I'm over here and it's not quite so laggy. I should say that and then I get oh yeah,
Praise the gods! Your victory is moments away!
right. So, city's on fire. We sacked the place. And now, we're going to go back to Ebdani after we take the money from it. I think that's the best course of action right now. Until things settle down in Britannia, we're not going to empire build right away. Get too big too fast, people get really upset about it. Oh, look at that stutter. Something about the going to the transition on the campaign map thing gets really laggy. Not sure why. Well, we can sack it, and then we can get ourselves an ally over here.
Ready for battle!
Oh yeah.
Let them cower
Great.
before us!
Yeah, because we can't move, so that's going to be to our benefit. See if Britannia...
You will find me
You
a
want
willing
trade?
and attentive audience
Yes,
for
you
your
do.
speech.
Pay me?
Give tongue to your words, and I...
Good. Caledonia likes me. Picts like me. They can't trade with me. Don't really care at this point. The whole... And see, there's Honorius right there. Who is aggressive expansionist, admires Eastern Romans, and religiously intolerant. That's good. Volsenios is our king. High king, really. But we'll go through one end phase before we do anything else. It won't be too bad because we're not Rome. Our prince is Moritex, who needs to marry, so we're gonna seek a wife. Oh, we can put a governor in, and I want Moritex to be the governor, so we're actually gonna... Actually, no. Take that back. You. Don't be around. Alright. It'll take a turn, but we'll set up our king as our governor. Make sure he's at the center of authority. Okay, so who'd you marry? I don't know. Okay, so Britain and the Western Empire are at war with each other.
For the tribe! Starting out!
And we surprisingly don't have any capability to move. I don't know why. But I don't want to send these guys back over to Ebdani without that being taken care of. That's the problem. Alright, so Vasenios is now the king, high king in the city. You married the PD, who is quiet. That'll actually be really good for him. What's his special thing? Lord? What's Vasenios' special thing? Overseer. So yeah, we put him in the right spot. Our queen is Atosa. Self-defense. Wow, good. He should be relatively easy to not have die right away, in theory.
For the tribe!
Radious. I feel like I need my prince there, but at the same time I
Thirsty
kind of
for
don't want to
battle.
keep him here, if you know what I mean. Truth be told, we could go down to Corinium and sack it as well, so I may
On
move
the
him
move,
south.
lads.
And since we're getting guys under our banner on our way, we should be able to get to Corinium relatively easy enough and sack that city and then move on. Londinium is the walled settlement in this territory, but I think that'll probably be the best course of action. But anyway, so Saguntium's okay. Ebdani is alright. We didn't do too much in this episode. I did show you kind of what battles look like. They are fast-paced, but they are pretty fun. As you see, we're already raking in as far as a single settlement city is concerned. If necessary, I will bolster my force, of course, but I don't think I need it yet. Nobody can really be put in a position of authority because, well, nobody's got the gravitas added up yet, or the influence as it is. But hopefully this has been both informative and neat sneak peek into the way this campaign is going to go. I'm not going to monetize this one because I think that's detracting from some views, which I'll find out if that's the case or not soon. But we do now have a wonderful ally over here in the main British Isle under Appius Kinus, who is very happy that we have liberated him from the dreaded Roman West Empire. And he is going to try to create a Britannic Empire, or Britannic Kingdom. That will be something we will have to eventually overthrow, but at this point, he's going to be used for our ends. So, with that, this has been the first episode of the Ebdani campaign. We are going to take over as the Irish and make a Irish Empire, so Erin, bragh, and have a good night.